कभी खुशी कभी गम कभी धूप कभी छाँव यूं ही चली आती है जिंदगी जिंदगी में दबे पाँव
1170 AM सुन के जिए जा रेडियो फासलों पे रहते हैं फिर भी नजदीक हैं, दूरियां मीलों की हैं फिर भी करीब हैं। फासलों पे रहते हैं फिर भी नजदीक हैं, दूरियां मीलों की हैं फिर भी करीब हैं। सात समंदर दूर नहीं है, इन फासलों को कम करना हम जाने। इन आवाजों से हमको पहचाने, आपके दिल को आए बहलाने। इन आवाजों से हमको पहचाने, आपके दिल को आए बहलाने। रेडियो Zindagi 1170 AM सुन के जिए जा।
Hello listeners, you are tuned in to the Silicon Dreams playing on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. In the studio joining me today is Royse. Roger is the founder of the Royse Law Firm, and he has worked with thousands of startups both on the North American continent as well as all countries outside of North America, including tons of countries in Asia. He helps them with corporate and tax laws, and he has helped thousands of startups with formation, contracting, acquisitions, and exit. Roger, we are glad to have you with us today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's interesting how you work for startups not just in America, but also in countries like India. What do you do for startups outside of the North American continent? How do you work with them? And what are their challenges that you help them solve?
So I'm a technology startup lawyer primarily. I'm a Silicon Valley lawyer. Most of my clients are tech startups by far, and most of those are companies that are formed outside the United States. And for companies like that, I can help them coming into the U.S. and entering the U.S. market. The headquarters of the top tech companies in the world, Microsoft, Apple, Adobe, Oracle, Google, LinkedIn, they're all here. So eventually, every tech startup is going to want to be here. They're going to want to be here for money, they're going to want to be here for markets, or they're going to want to be here for talent. And when they do come into this market, I can help them do that in a legally compliant manner. That's part of what we do.
Thank you, Roger. If I was to ask you about the biggest challenge that a startup from outside the United States could face in the Silicon Valley, what would that be?
Yeah, there are so many challenges of doing business in California, no doubt about it. These days, we have legal hurdles now. The biggest challenges for companies coming to Silicon Valley, it's no longer traffic, it's no longer housing and rent, any of that. It's all artificial. It's legal and regulatory hurdles. As of January 1 of this year, we have a whole host of new laws that make it increasingly difficult and complicated for companies to do business here. Silicon Valley is still a great bet. California is still a great bet. Companies still have to be here, but they need more legal counsel in order to do that in an efficient manner.
Roger, I am pretty sure that our listeners would be more than interested in learning about these legislative changes that will impact them in 2020. So folks, keep listening to the Silicon Dreams with me, Shara, on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM, and I will see you right back after this next song.
Do you recall, not long ago, we would walk on the sidewalk, innocent, remember? All we did was care for each other, but the night was warm, we were bold and young. All around, the wind blows, we would only hold on to let go. Blow kiss, fire gun, we would need someone to lean on. Blow kiss, fire gun, all we need is somebody to lean on. Blow kiss, fire gun, we would need someone to lean on. Blow kiss, fire gun, all we need is somebody to lean on.
ਰੇਸ਼ਮੀ ਨਾਲੇ ਅਦੇ ਚਿੱਟੇ ਤੇ
folks, I hope you enjoyed listening to this lovely Bollywood mashup of the song Lean On done by Vidya Walks. You are listening to the Silicon Dreams with me, RJ Shara, and we are playing on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. With me in the studio, I have Roger Royse, the founder of Royse Law Firm. And as I mentioned earlier, he has helped thousands of startups find their calling here in the Silicon Valley. And these startups have come from across the globe. Do you want to touch upon maybe one or two of the key things that you think startups aren't aware of and that you feel is going to be a huge challenge for them with these regulations?
California has never been a particularly easy place to do business. Probably the number one problem we have in the state now is a new law that was passed last year called AB5. It's also known as the anti-gig economy bill. I consider it an anti-worker bill, and it hurts workers in California, even though it was passed under the guise of worker protection. It is just the opposite. So a couple of years ago, our California Supreme Court decided a decision in a case called Dynamics, in which they expanded the definition of employee. That designation, employee, is very significant legally. It means that a person is entitled to labor law protection, and that's a lot of things. They're entitled to meal breaks. They're entitled to other types of breaks during the day, paid breaks. They're entitled to overtime pay. They're entitled to workers' compensation and unemployment. They can sue under non-discrimination laws. So by expanding that definition, what the Supreme Court did is it brought in to the definition of employee a lot of people who previously were not considered to be employees. Gig economy people like Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, things like that.
Well, I don't think they were even rallying for that law to be passed. In fact, a lot of gig economy workers were sad about it.
Well, they're absolutely sad. They're up in arms about it. They've been put out of work because that has increased the cost of employing these people by about 30% by some estimates. Now we've got this ridiculous law that applies to gig economy workers. And if you're a company operating a platform, you're going to have big problems in California because your costs have just gone up by about 30% with respect to your workers. That's the number one biggest change, I think, in the state.
In my opinion, the AB5 law is one of those prime examples where legislature is in favor of no one. It's not in favor of the companies and not in favor of the workers because so many people have been put out of jobs. So we will continue our conversations with Roger Royse after this next lovely remix with Chainsmokers and Vidya. See you in a few minutes on the Silicon Dreams playing right here at Radio Zindagi 1170 AM.
Hey, I was doing just fine before I met you. I drink too much and that's an issue, but I'm okay.
Hey, you tell your friends it was nice to meet them, but I hope I never see them again. I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car. 4 years no calls. Now you're looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I can't stop. No, I can't stop. So baby, pull me closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder. Pull the sheets right off the corner of that mattress that you stole from your roommate back in Boulder. We ain't ever getting older. The day I met you, I forget just why I left you. I was insane.
Stay and play that Blink-182 song that we beat to death in Tucson. Okay.
I know it breaks your heart. Moved to the city in a broke down car. 4 years no call. Now I'm looking pretty in a hotel bar, and I can't stop. No, I can't stop. So baby, pull me close.
closer in the backseat of your Rover that I know you can't afford. Bite that tattoo on your shoulder. Pull the sheets right off the corner of that mattress that you stole from your roommate back in Boulder. We ain't ever getting older.
रेडियो जिंदगी
जिए जा और मजे लिए जा.
Welcome back to the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. I am Shara and I am joined by attorney Roger Royse from the Royse Law Firm. Roger and I were talking about how the AB5 bill, instead of protecting the workers, has actually put a lot of gig economy workers out of jobs. However, now, Roger, I want to deviate a little bit from the topic because something on your bio has caught my eye. Get this, guys. Roger, who is an attorney, is also an instructor at the Stanford School for Continuing Studies. However, what's interesting is the subject that he teaches. So, Roger, what is an attorney doing at Stanford teaching blockchain?
Well, you may recall 2 or 3 years ago, we had a boom, another boom all over the world, not just in Silicon Valley. And that was in the ICO market, digital assets, tokens, coins, cryptocurrency. And it promised to be the new way of raising money, especially for startup companies. Initially, at least, those products were driven by blockchain technology. And we've always been very involved in blockchain-backed projects. For example, we were one of the first law firms in the country to accept Bitcoin in payment.
Oh, wow.
I wish I'd gotten more of it in retrospect. I had to get to understand it because of our fintech practice and what we're doing. And as I understood it, I saw that blockchain had much broader applications, especially in supply chain, in food and agriculture, in finance, financial transactions, lending transactions, all sorts of different transactions. So I had to learn about it. I had to understand the technology in order to be a good lawyer in the space. The best way for me to understand the technology is by teaching a course in it. I would say that the technology has moved on a little bit since then. You don't hear people talking as much about blockchain as they do about distributed ledger. It means slightly different things. It's still an evolving space. The defining characteristic of blockchain, of course, is that it was decentralized. But what we're finding more and more of what we call private blockchain and less decentralization. So the fundamental concepts are still there. It's been around forever, but the models are still evolving.
It will be fascinating to find out which models end up being the dominant paradigms. Roger and I, RJ Shara, will continue these conversations on the Silicon Dreams, playing here at Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. Till then, listen to our next song.
एक सांस में चढ़ा ले, हिचकियों में क्या है मरना, पूरा मर ले. कोयला काला है, चट्टानों ने पाला है, अंदर काला बाहर काला, पर सच्चा है सारा. कोयला काला है, चट्टानों ने पाला है, अंदर काला बाहर काला, पर सच्चा है सारा.
Listening to this amazing remix of Zinda with Num playing on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. If you are interested in that track, go look for Trap Plan B on YouTube. This is the Silicon Dreams. I am Shara, and I have with me attorney Roger Royse, who's also the founder of the Royse Law Firm. Roger, before I started playing that song, I think it was pretty well established that you are an expert when it comes to blockchain. And I'm not just talking about the laws related to it, but you also have a very good handle on how the technology works. I know you mentioned that the specialty of Royse Law Firm is to help tech startups. So besides the blockchain domain, which other domains do you help startups in?
Agriculture technology is probably what we do most of. Agtech, Agtech, or Agritech. It solves one of the biggest problems facing the world today. How are we going to feed an expanding population base? And how are we going to do it on an efficient, effective, and sustainable basis? We've been working in Agtech for about 10 years now. We're very involved in this, so much so that not only do we have a lot of good Agtech clients who have gone from small to large very quickly, but we do a lot of outreach in the community. We do an annual conference every year, our Silicon Valley Agtech conference that we host, produce, and manage, that generates 500 to 700 attendees, and it is currently now part of the IoT World Conference, which is several thousand attendees. We've had congressmen, senators, governors, venture capitalists. We've had some of the biggest names in agriculture and technology stand on our stage at that conference, and we've launched hundreds of companies from our stages on our pitch events that have gone on to do very, very well. We've been all over the United States and throughout Asia, and we're just getting started. But mostly we do thought leadership. I've testified to Congress the appropriate role of government in connection with Agtech, especially as it relates to some of the big issues now, which are rural broadband access, that's a big one, and the regulation of data. Those are two very big issues. We're very much at the front of that, and that's where Agtech and law really do meet. But mostly we represent startup companies. They sit down, they have an idea, and we put them together with the farmers. That's their market. We put them in touch with the VCs and the angels. That's who's going to fund them. And we can even help them with ideation because we know the space very well. So Agtech I'm very excited about.
So for any Agtech or food tech startup out there that's looking for an attorney to talk to, you know whom to get in touch with. With that, let's listen to our next song, which is a medley of Despacito and Me Tera Boyfriend. Playing right here on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. This is Shara and you are listening to The Silicon Dreams.
Come and move that in my direction. So thankful for that, it's such a blessing, yeah. Turn every situation into heaven, yeah. Oh, you are my sunrise on the darkest day. Got me feeling some kind of way. You wanna savor every moment slowly, slowly. Let me tell me love how you put it on. The only key know how to turn it on. The way you never lie, my ear, the only words I wanna hear. Baby, take it slow so we can last long.
Tú eres el imán y yo soy el metal. Me voy acercando y voy armando el plan. Solo con pensarlo se acelera el pulso.
Oh yeah, ya me está gustando más de lo normal. Todos mis sentidos van pidiendo más. Esto hay que tomarlo sin ningún apuro. You get back to the boyfriend. Back to the boyfriend. Back to the boyfriend. Con mi girlfriend. Con menos candy, na 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 na. Back to the boyfriend. Con mi girlfriend. Con menos candy, na 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 na. Ustedes son americanos, tú sabes. Con menos candy, na 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 na.
Welcome back to the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM. I am Shara and I have Roger Royse here with me today. Roger is an attorney and also the founder at the Royse Law Firm. They have helped thousands of startups with contracting, acquisitions, formations, you name it, and these startups have come from various domains across the globe, domains such as Agtech, FinTech, blockchain, and many other tech domains. So Roger, a couple of weeks ago on this very show, we had covered the letter sent out by Sequoia Capital to its portfolio companies talking about coronavirus becoming the black swan of 2020. The last time Sequoia Capital had sent out a pessimist letter like this was before the 2008 recession, and we know how bad that was. So what are your thoughts about this?
It's not going to get that bad. It's not. Because what we have here is, yes, we're going into a recession. caused by a black swan. It's caused by COVID. And the thing about recessions that are caused by external events, they tend to be shallower and shorter than recessions that are caused by, just natural cycles like some of the other ones that I've lived through. So the point of that memo was to say, however, we do have a reaction. We have a whole host of legal things you need to think about. Part of it is, and it's too much for us to talk about here, check out my blog post or listen to one of my webinars on this, but there's the CARES package and government stimulus and qualifying for SBA loans. There's the new changes in the tax laws, a rollback of recent tax law changes, and some new tax benefits. There are tax credits now that are going to be available for almost everybody.
With all the ups and downs that are impacting the startups and the businesses out there, I want to quickly talk about your book, Dead on Arrival, How to Avoid Legal Mistakes That Could Kill Your Startup. Can you tell our listeners what can they expect to find in the book?
So I wrote this book a few years ago. I just noticed that of all the companies that I've been seeing, they could be in different industries, different geographies, different markets, but they all seem to make the same mistake. It's pretty rare. It's maybe 1 in 8 or 1 in 10 companies is actually going to have the metrics to make it as a startup and get past that funding event. I wanted to make sure that I would make that easy for them and ensure that they weren't going to be derailed by some silly legal mistake. It's a rare thing, if a company manages to put together the right team, they have that perfect storm of the right team, the right product, the right time, technology. If everything works for them, you don't want them to be stalled by a legal mistake. And that's why I wrote Dead on Arrival, How to Avoid the Legal Mistakes That Could Kill Your Startup. It just goes through real life examples that I've seen over the last 30 years and things companies have done wrong, that had they done it differently, they would have had a much different outcome.
If you want to learn about these legal mistakes, you can order the book from Amazon, or you can send an email to Roger at rroyse, that's RROYSE at rroyselaw.com, and he'll be happy to send you a digital copy at no cost. Roger, thank you very much for coming to our show, and I also want to congratulate you for the acquisition of Royse Law by Haynes & Boone. So folks, with that, let's wrap up our show today, and I'll see you next week at 3:30 p.m. on the Silicon Dreams on Radio Zindagi 1170 AM GHL.
Hello, this is Shahid Kapoor and you're listening to Radio Zindagi.